The Dark Ages, where life was short, hygiene was optional, and danger lurked around every corner. Here are 10 dumb ways to die in the Dark Ages. And trust me, some of these are so absurd, you won't believe they're real. Number 10. Death by too much cheese. Cheese was a staple of the medieval diet, especially in regions with cold climates. Without refrigeration or modern pasteurization techniques, cheese could easily become contaminated with harmful bacteria like botulism. Caused by these bacteria, led to paralysis and often death. Botulism outbreaks were not uncommon in regions where improperly stored dairy was consumed during winter months. Food preservation techniques were rudimentary at best. People often used salt or smoke to preserve foods, but lacked an understanding of microbial growth. Spoiled cheese looked no different from good cheese, making it a hidden killer. Number 9. Spontaneous combustion during church. Fires were a hazard in medieval buildings, which were constructed from wood and straw. Churches, often illuminated by hundreds of candles during long ceremonies, were particularly at risk. Flowing robes worn by priests and worshippers alike were highly flammable. Combined with tightly packed congregations and an abundance of open flames, the danger of accidental fire was enormous. Fire accidents in churches were often interpreted as divine punishment or signs of heresy. In some cases, the victims were posthumously blamed for their sins. Number 8. Deadly tooth extraction. Dental care in the Dark Ages was almost non-existent. Toothaches were treated as minor inconveniences until they became unbearable, at which point extraction was the go-to solution. This was performed by barbers or blacksmiths, as they had the necessary tools. The tools used were unsterilized, and extractions often caused open wounds that became infected. Sepsis was a common outcome. Furthermore, nerves and blood vessels were frequently damaged during these procedures. Archaeological evidence of skulls from this era shows signs of crude extractions, often leading to secondary fractures of the jaw or skull. Number 7. Drinking the wrong water. Medieval cities and towns lacked proper sewage systems. Rivers, wells, and other water sources were often polluted with human and animal waste. Drinking water from these sources could expose individuals to diseases like dysentery, cholera, and typhoid fever. The concept of bacteria and waterborne diseases was not understood until centuries later. People believed that water was inherently dangerous to drink, which is why alcoholic beverages like beer and ale were preferred. Fun fact, people believed wine and beer were healthier than water because they didn't cause illness, not realizing the alcohol killed pathogens. Number 6. Getting crushed by a chamber pot. Indoor plumbing didn't exist, so people used chamber pots to collect waste. In densely populated medieval cities, residents disposed of this waste by tossing it out of windows into the streets below. If a heavy ceramic chamber pot was accidentally thrown out along with the waste, it could hit someone, causing severe head injuries or death. Historical records from London and Paris document several incidents of injuries caused by falling chamber pots. Number 5. Becoming dinner for rats. Rats were a massive problem in the Middle Ages, particularly during plague outbreaks. With cats being vilified as witches' familiars and exterminated, rat populations flourished. Sick or incapacitated individuals were sometimes left unattended, making them vulnerable to scavenging rats. Rats are opportunistic feeders and would nibble on immobile humans if no other food was available. During the Black Death, some plague victims were found with bite marks, suggesting that rats fed on them after they were too weak to defend themselves. Number 4. Death by fashion. Medieval fashion often prioritized beauty over practicality. One example was polaines, pointed shoes with absurdly long tips that signified wealth and status. The shoes made walking and climbing stairs precarious, leading to frequent falls and injuries. In rare cases, the injuries were fatal. Nobles wearing polaines often tripped during grand ceremonies, leading to some embarrassing and occasionally deadly incidents. Fun fact, the church eventually condemned polaines, labeling them sinful because of their impracticality and association with vanity. Number 3. Overindulging at feasts. Feasting was a key part of medieval culture, especially for the nobility. These events featured lavish spreads of meats, pastries, and exotic delicacies, often consumed in excess. Overeating rich or spoiled foods could lead to choking, food poisoning, or fatal digestive issues. Some individuals reportedly ate so much their stomachs ruptured. Henry I of England allegedly died from consuming an excessive amount of lampreys, a type of jawless fish considered a delicacy. Number 2. Witch trials and water tests. Accused witches were subjected to bizarre and deadly tests to determine guilt. One of the most infamous was the water test, in which the accused was bound and thrown into a body of water. If the accused floated, They were declared a witch and often executed. If they sank, they were deemed innocent, but they often drowned before being rescued. The witch trials in Europe during the 15th and 16th centuries led to thousands of deaths, many from such tests. The logic behind the water test was based on the belief that water, being pure, would reject a witch's body, causing them to float. Number 1. Death by knightly ego. Knights and nobles were obsessed with honor and reputation. Petty disputes often escalated into duels, which were seen as the ultimate way to settle scores. Many duels were fought to the death or resulted in severe injuries. The winner could still succumb to infection or complications from their wounds. A knight once challenged another to a duel over being insulted at a banquet, only to be killed instantly. Duels were not always fair. Some knights used superior weapons or armor, making them one-sided affairs.